What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to Your Ex-Drinking Buddy. My name is Brennan Tassif. I'll be your host. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com/merch-store. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. We'll put the shorts up there, the full video, the whole thing. Thank you so much for listening. I love it. I hope you love it. Subscribe on Patreon, too. We do bonus episodes. I do Tales from the Restaurant, where I talk about celebrities I've waited on and whether they're assholes or not, which is super fun. Also, we do a pre-show banter for my other show, Cheers from the Press Box with Joe Dorville. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on over there, too. Make sure you just subscribe everywhere, just all over the place. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're not leaving the mean comments, thank you for that. Maybe leave a couple nice ones.
Grab me your beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Mary Santora. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course,
Excited to
thanks
be
for
here.
coming on.
Everything's good. Life's good.
Life's good?
No, life's trash. What are you gonna do?
Before we get too far into anything, plug everything up front. Social media, this will come out Monday. So any dates you have coming up next week, whatever you got going on.
You can follow me on all social media at Mary Santora Comedy. That's TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. MarySantora.com has all of my tour dates. I'm going to be in Michigan doing 4 days, January 15th through the 19th in all different cities, Detroit, a couple little smaller towns. Valentine's Day weekend, I should be. You know what? I probably shouldn't even say it. It's not official yet. But just check out MarySantora.com for all upcoming road dates.
Boom. So thank you so much for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you. You mentioned the Michigan thing. I had an instinctual reaction because you were originally from Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, my whole family is from Ohio. So it's Cleveland, not the Columbus area. So you have no problem. Big Blue Nation, you don't mind going up there performing, that whole thing?
I think, and you're going to hate this, I think college football is so stupid.
I think it's so stupid, too.
I was a cheerleader. I cheered at the University of Toledo. I think
Go Rockets.
grown men, like adult human men who are 40 and 50, putting all of their time and energy on a Saturday into 18-year-old boys is the gayest thing I've ever heard.
I actually, plot twist, completely agree with you.
I can't stand it.
I don't like college football in the slightest. I still root for my alma mater because that's where I went. But the turnover is so incessant. The coaches are always and as someone who played college football and has 8 concussions and got nothing to show for it as far as like monetary value, I'm like, oh no, this ruins people's lives.
Yes. And it's too much, I don't know, too much pressure on young kids. And I know that they're eventually going to go into the NFL or some of them or whatever. But I think
The
that
0.01% of them that go.
I think like if you're not in college, making your entire life about college football is so pathetic.
Look at us. We agree on this.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
I'm not even being facetious. I completely agree with you.
I think it's because I think my big problem is like these are kids.
Yeah.
They are 18 and 19 years old. Like we don't trust them with a Bud Light, but you're going to let them fuck up your whole Saturday. Like this is, it doesn't make any sense to me. I've never been, even when I was a cheerleader, obviously I'm into it. I'm there. I'm for my team.
Yeah.
But the minute I graduated, well, I didn't graduate. I dropped out. The minute I stopped cheering, I was just like, oh, I don't care anymore.
The minute you left, yeah.
The minute I left, I was like, I will never watch another college football game. This means nothing to me.
I completely agree in the sense, too, where it's like, obviously I love FAU. I've got a bunch of bits where I mention it just as almost ironically. But I don't I know who the coach is, like things like that. But if you asked me to name 3 players, I'd be like, I got nothing. You
shouldn't know the name, stats, hometown, weight of college age boys. You shouldn't. That's not something you should know as a grown 40-year-old man.
But I can name almost every single player on the Jacksonville Jaguars because that's my team.
I understand. I grew up in Cleveland Browns fan my entire life up until a couple years ago when I had to make a choice. Deshaun, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's where the first time in my
I have a
entire
sports
life,
podcast. We talk about that a lot.
my entire life, where I stopped cheering, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch. And I know one person doing that is not the end of the world. They don't give a fuck if I don't watch. But it made
one person
me
with a
feel
pretty
better.
big following, though.
It made me feel better. It
Yeah.
made me, and I was on radio in Cleveland throughout the whole thing, and I was just like, this is...
You were open about it?
Oh,
Did
absolutely.
you get any pushback from...
Of course.
Yeah.
You're like,
Okay.
people... I mean, it was a very hot topic in Cleveland where people would be like, is this... Where do you... My big
Where's
thing
the
was
line?
like, how much do you want me to sacrifice for an already historically shitty team?
Yeah.
I have given up so many Sundays to be sad. Now you want me to be sad and compromise my morals.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it.
It was because I've talked about this a lot on my sports podcast with my co-host Joe Dorville. Shout out Joe, he always listens. But it was one of those things where it was like, this isn't even, and I'll speak for myself. But when it happened, you're like, this isn't even like a franchise change. Like the Texans made the playoff, but it's not like he was dragging them to the
No.
Super Bowl. And
They
like,
didn't sign Tom Brady.
yeah, and it's, I mean, and at the time he was good, but he also hadn't played in a year. And his last year in Houston, he wasn't very good.
None of it made any sense.
And it was-
we were not that desperate.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the other thing
exactly.
is that it was like for the front office to compromise, and in the middle of dozens of like sexual allegations, it was just like
24.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You have all this money, $230 million. Pay Nick Chubb more money. Pay Myles Garrett more money. Pay
Chubb's
the
my
people.
guy.
He's my boyfriend. I love him
love
so
Nick
much. I
Chubb.
love Nick Chubb. That's my jersey.
I get him every year for
It's
fantasy.
my favorite. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, when he had that knee injury,
I threw up. It was the first game
I literally
watched.
cried watching it because as someone who's gotten hurt so many times on the field, I was like, "It's over, man! It's over!" I was like, "It can't be over!" And I was like crying.
Dude, it was very upsetting for the entire city of Cleveland because Deshaun was playing. So I hadn't watched in like probably a year. I think that was his second year. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch and I'm just going to root for Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Like, fuck
Chubb in the
whatever
defense,
happens,
yeah.
I'm going to root for Nick Chubb. And so I watch it and then he gets hurt and I'm like, oh, so I'm out. Like, there's no reason for me to watch this at all. And then
Flacco came in and brought you to the playoffs almost.
which was great. I wasn't watching though.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks ago, Deshaun tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
So Deshaun was out. Jameis Winston, who I love, who is just the happiest little man. I love him. So did you watch him mic'd up in the snow
I've
game?
seen everything.
In the snow game?
Jingle bells, jingle bells.
It was so much fun. It was the best, dude.
Yeah, and he's really turned his because he had a couple of issues at Florida State and then after, like at that Super Bowl. But he's got married, has his daughter now,
But
and
the
just kind
difference
of
is that like people are like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, he's excited and he's a leader and he's not bogged down by all this other bullshit.
Yeah.
And as much as Deshaun wanted to say it didn't affect him, it did. It very clearly did.
Yeah.
And so Jameis Winston was in, and Nick Chubb, it was his first game back, and I was like, okay. I put my jersey on. I watched it home. Like I was ready to do it, and so it's been.
And then
it's
they
been-
ended up beating the.
That was like the best
Ravens.
game I've ever watched, where it was just back and forth, back
When
and forth, back and
Jameis
forth.
threw, because Jameis is known for throwing interceptions. That's his thing. He's a gunslinger. He'll just throw it. And when he threw that interception and Kyle Hamilton dropped it, who's one of arguably the best safeties in the NFL,
Dude.
I remember watching it being like, oh,
So
God
yeah.
is rewarding you for
Dude,
getting rid of Deshaun.
It was so good. It was like I could not have asked for a more perfect game to watch.
Yeah.
And then I think we lost 2 after that. But to come back
But
to
still,
that
to
one
come
was
back,
still like
yeah.
the best. Yeah.
He is watching his mic'd up and his pregame interviews. It's very interesting because obviously.
He seems wholesome.
Well, and he has had a turnaround because, again, he's not, a lot of these guys, especially as someone who played Division I football, when you play at an even higher level, like at a Florida State or a Florida or like a, something like that, like you do get away with a lot, and the lines can start to be blurred about what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, just because society is telling you everything you're doing is okay.
Yeah.
Because you're winning games for this.
Right.
So I understand that. I think for me the biggest difference was, I think with Jameis, it was he had maybe misread situations or had made a couple mistakes, but then he was humbled by it and he like showed remorse for it and then moved on.
Yeah.
With Deshaun, it was this steadfast like, nope.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
I'm innocent.
And
All
it's one thing
24 of these women are lying.
And I was going to say, it's one thing with Jameis, it was 2 different instances, and one of them, like, arguably you could be like, he just misread the situation, which a lot of people have been in those situations where you think there's a vibe and there's not a vibe.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, my bad. But for Deshaun to be like, okay, maybe after 2, 4, 6, once we get to 10, 12, 20, then it's like, something's wrong here, dude.
No. And that was the thing, is that a lot of people in Cleveland were like, innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
He's not been proven guilty. He is, that's the U.S. court system. But now everybody's a lawyer. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't really care.
Well,
24 different women are not telling the same story.
Yeah.
And they're all lying.
Yeah.
From different parts of the country.
Do you know how hard it is to get 10 people to agree and tell the same story about something?
It's
you know how many
ridiculous.
times someone's been like, oh, have you heard the bit by so-and-so? And then they butcher it? And
You know
that's
how hard
just
it is
1
to
to
get-
1.
To get 2 people to tell the same story who were at the same event?
Yeah. We all remember it differently.
Yeah.
Just
Anyway.
ask my ex. She's always like, our relationship is not what you think it was.
Right.
And I'm like, I think we were both there, but I guess
thought we were having a good time.
I guess we're both having 2 different. All right. Anyway, so let's get into you.
Okay.
So when do you? This is a question I ask all my guests and whatever art that they're in. Art is a niche thing. You know, a lot of people go with the mainstream, the gray line, that whole thing, corporate jobs, yada yada yada. How did you find comedy? How did you find like stand up? Like, how did you even get into that realm?
Like, I've always been interested in funny things. Sarcasm was a big part of my childhood. There were 5 kids. We were poor. Like, we 7-member family, and it was a lot of ribbing. It was a lot of making fun of each other. It was a lot of that. So you learn defense mechanisms or
Yeah.
whatever it might be early on. And I always loved comedy movies, and the show Whose Line Is It Anyway was
Okay.
like a huge influence on my childhood, where like my sister and I would like turn the sound off and play the games, and it was like the best. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I thought I wanted to do improv for a while. But I went to college, or no. Let me a little bit back. I think it was probably middle school, Dane Cook's Harmful If Swallowed album came out. And this is before
That's the reason I do stand up.
it was that album.
I talk about this. The listeners are sick of hearing it, but when that album came out,
Yeah.
that was the one where I go, I want to do this.
I was like 13,
yeah,
or 12 maybe.
I'm like I'm a year, maybe a year and a half older than you, so I was like just into high school.
Yeah, I was. I
And
want
we
to
were
say I was
burning
in 7th
CDs
grade.
and passing
yeah.
it around. Yeah,
I put it on my iPod, my first generation iPod that just had the blue background with the
Yeah,
black letters.
yeah.
I had the Dane Cook Harmful If Swallowed album on there, and I listened to. I could still say every single word
too.
to every
Yeah.
single bit. And I was like,
naughty,
I was
Kool-Aid.
like, I love this.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe that this was something that people did.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after that, my friend's parents had a Brian Regan DVD,
Okay.
the I Walked on the Moon, the
Yeah.
one that he did from the
Yeah.
improv in
Yeah.
Florida. And I watched that, and I was like, I can't, like, Brian Regan blew me away because I was like, he's so funny without even saying things. Yes, like his facial expressions and his movements
Yeah.
and everything. And I just became like obsessed with it, where I was like, oh, this is incredible. I love this so much. And then Cat Williams blew up after that.
Pimpin'
Pimpin'
Chronicles too,
the
yeah.
green velvet suit
Yep.
one, where he goes off on Michael Jackson. Oh
Comes
my
out
God.
and does the McDonald's, the hustling every day.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hustling.
It's so good. And so like that was kind of my early influences in comedy were Dane Cook, Brian Regan, and Cat Williams.
This is fun for
I don't know if
me.
you could pick three
This
more
I
wildly
know,
different
that's-
comics. But
That's
those
a
were,
lot. But this is fun for me because you and I are around the same age. I always have like younger people in, and so a lot of times there'll be, it's just comics that I've seen like from when they first started to now they're like big names. So I'll have younger comics in, and then they'll mention that. Very rarely do I have someone like who follows like kind of the same tree where I'm like, yeah, I remember
Yeah.
exactly where I was when I saw that
Yeah.
special. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like Richard Pryor and Chris Rock, and I'm like, all right, well that's obvious. Like
Yeah.
that's everybody's favorite.
Well, the crazy thing is that I've not seen a lot of those classic specials.
Okay.
I came in that early 2000s is when I was introduced into comedy. So this is when before Tom Segura, before any of those people. Like Tom
Yeah.
Segura, I didn't even find until like 2013.
Yeah.
When his the I
Mostly
found him
stories.
on Spotify.
Oh, okay.
Where he was
I thought
laying
you were
in
gonna
his,
say Netflix.
I think it's Thriller.
Thrilled.
Yes, where he's
That's
got
his
like
first album, so yeah, that's
so that like showed up on my Spotify, and so like then I was introduced, and obviously Amy Schumer, Last Comic Standing.
Yeah.
Like so when that was my boom.
Yeah.
That was my like, oh, this is
It's
the people I look up to.
It's so crazy
Yeah.
because I remember I got into podcasts and I was listening to Adam Carolla because that was like one of the only podcasts that was out there.
Yeah.
And Kevin Smith. This is like in 2009. And I remember through Adam Carolla, I started listening to this podcast called The After Disaster. And through that, I found like they would talk about like other people. And so then I found their podcast, and it's a long story, but I ended up listening to Jay Moore's podcast on the second episode. So this is like 2011, 12, I want to say. He had Tom and Bert on the second episode. And I remember they did this whole bit about like, there's kingfish out there talking about the ocean. And I could not stop laughing. I go, this Tom guy, I got to find him. And I've been a fan ever since. So for over a decade, I've been like, this is like my guy. That's how I found Matt. And me and Matt's one of my best friends, Fulcheron.
Yeah.
And I found him through Tom and Christina's podcast, Your Mom's House. So it is weird because it's like those are the biggest comics now. But it's like we were around when they were like playing like the clubs.
Doing the clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that
just
was
doing the clubs, not selling a ton of tickets on a weekend.
best,
And you were like.
So.
I remember in 2014. Drunk. This is after I relapsed. I was drunk at Tom Segura's show in Jacksonville at the Comedy Zone.
Okay.
And I remember he was doing a bit about like someone owed me $100. And because podcasting is so one-sided, as a listener, I felt like I knew him. But he has no fucking idea who I am.
Parasocial relationships.
Yes. There you go. Very good. And I shouted out, full charge? Because he was like, a buddy borrowed $100. And he went, what? And I was so like ashamed that I heckled.
No.
I went, no, nothing. I'm just kidding around, man. Nothing. And he goes, no, what'd you say?
Yeah.
And I was like, full charge. And then he laughed. He goes, no, Matt didn't borrow the money. And then he kept talking. But I was so like, and I had started doing stand-up, but I was drunk and I was like, we're buddies. He'll get it.
Well, I actually, so in college, Ralphie May came to my college, and I remember loving Ralphie May.
He did a lot of colleges.
He did.
He came to FAU before too.
And I watched it, and I was like, "This is incredible." And that was like, I'm trying to remember if that was I feel like the first live stand-up show I ever saw. There was a shithole club in Toledo called Connections Comedy Club.
Okay.
And they would do like, I want to say it was like $5 or something like that on Wednesdays for college students.
Okay.
And they did a show called Wise Ass Wednesdays. And it would be like local guys doing 10 or 15 minutes, and then they'd have somebody close it out and do like a half hour. And I don't even know if this guy's still alive. I kept the ticket. I want to say this was my first stand-up show. The guy's name was L.A. Hardy.
All right.
And I remember laughing so hard
Okay.
and just being like so involved that I was like, I can't believe this is a job. And I sat up front and I kept the ticket and I was so excited. And then I would go back and I would heckle and I'd sit up front, and all the guys knew me because I wanted to do it so bad.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a comic so bad, but I didn't know how to do it. So I would just go and watch and try to insert myself. And
we can't be on the stage. I'm going to interact with the stage.
yeah, there was a guy who came to my college again. His name was Chili Chalice, and he was like a writer on for Jay Leno. And he had just moved back to Michigan, and he was handing out flyers after his show for like his comedy class. And I took one and I did it. I did the comedy class.
Okay.
And so
is that, I want to ask, because I love these little details.
Yeah.
So when you get that flyer for the comedy class, as someone who's followed comedy, loved comedy, are you like, oh, this is my, like, were you like, this is the universe telling me, like, this is my shot?
No.
Or did you just kind of take the flyer and you're like, oh, I'll check it out?
it was like I took the flyer and I was like, well, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
Like I can do this.
Okay.
I have a very, one of my most toxic traits is being like, I can pretty much do anything.
Yeah.
Like, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
Of course.
But like, it sounds so stupid. When I watch the Olympics,
It does not sound stupid.
when I watch the Olympics, and I'm like, if all I ever did was dedicate my life to javelin, I'd be good at it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't doubt that for 1 second.
I might not be reacting the way that most people would, because I am 100% in agreement with that.
If it's like, if you give me a month, I'll be good at anything.
Yeah.
Give me 30 days to focus on one task, and I'm going to be the best at it.
It's
It's so psychotic.
well, it's a
so
delusional
crazy.
thing, but it's
very
that
delusional.
addiction mentality where it's like, oh, I'll just keep doing this until I can't do it anymore, then I'll be so good at it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I've said it a million times. I'm the same way. Like in the gym, like I'm 36 years old. There's no reason that I need to bench 415 pounds, but it's like, no, this is like what I do. Like I come to the gym, and if I'm going to go to the gym, then I'm going to do it. Like I don't. And so that idea, like I've seen people train for marathons and stuff, and no shade to
I hate running.
My twin sister. I love you so much. But like I see her schedule, and like my girlfriend saw it, and she's like, this is crazy. And I'm like, but yeah, she's like, this is what's required.
Yeah.
Like in my head, it's just like, yeah, this is what's necessary to do the thing you want to do.
Right.
Like,
well, I think that's what's been such a difficult thing for me moving to New York is that I hate sounding like this, but everything I've done in my life I've been good at.
Yeah.
And if I'm not good, I either quit or I work until I'm better at it. You know what I mean? So
That was me in my senior year. My coach literally goes, we try to get you to quit. You never quit.
Yeah.
And now you're pretty good.
Yeah,
and I was like, thanks, coach.
So, like, I've always been the best at any job that I've been at. I've always been the top performer.
Always
I've always
a trainer.
Been,
always,
I was always the one that was, like, the go-to. That was on the path to whatever.
Yeah.
And so...
I've never felt more seen.
Well, it was the same way with stand-up.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of recognition very quickly.
Okay, this is where we differ.
Okay, I mean small scale.
No, but yeah,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean? Like
Yeah,
in
yeah.
my scene.
Yeah.
It was like I was.
So where was your scene though? So you
I
take the
started in
class and then you
Toledo.
start in Toledo.
I started in Toledo, and I do like the little scene, and it was set up 3 times a week where we had a writing session on Monday. We had essentially an open mic, but only for the people in our writing class, in our comedy class.
Mm-hmm.
We did our open mic on Tuesday, and then on Thursday was a real open mic at a bar that anybody could sign up, and there were live people there.
Yeah.
So that was like the 3 things, and I want to say it was like $500 for 5 weeks or something like that.
That's not bad.
It wasn't bad.
For 5 weeks, like I've seen classes that are $500 for like 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
you're like, all right, that's a little.
So it was like
aggressive.
$100 a week.
Yeah.
For essentially 3 meetings, $30 a meeting, whatever. So I was doing that, and I felt like and was being told I was progressing quicker than some people who had been in there for like a year or 2.
Yeah.
So then I was entering competitions, and I was doing all these things. And
You're also not afraid of the spotlight as someone who cheered and
no,
has been in.
I'm a
like,
ham.
Yeah.
I've always loved it. I was in
Cheers to that.
before I cheered. I was in plays like both at school and in community theater and things like that. Like I love being the guy, you know. So my first time on stage, actually, now that I'm remembering it, was it wasn't the comedy class. It was a competition at the University of Toledo.
Okay.
It was a student stand-up competition.
Was this before you ever even took the class?
Before I took the class.
Okay.
It was my first time on stage. It was a...
How did it go?
I crushed.
Did
I'm
you?
Not even kidding. It was 400 students
Yeah.
in the auditorium.
Super relatable material.
So relatable. I
obviously,
was
yeah.
writing, my jokes were all about living on campus.
Yep.
So it was just like,
Just
just
dingers,
murdering.
every one of them.
I was murdering. And
That's like when I do fundraisers for AA.
yeah.
I'm just like, boom.
Well, and that's the thing is that
Boom!
there's the problem with it is that after that day,
That's an unrealistic expectation.
February, yes, I got off stage and I was like, I'm withdrawing from my classes. It was February 23rd, 2012. I know what day it was. February 23rd, 2012, I withdrew from all of my classes in April because I was like, because then after that, I started the comedy classes. I was becoming like better than everyone else in there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be famous in 6 months.
Yeah.
Like Comedy Central by the end of the year. Type
Move
of deal.
over. And this is back when Comedy Central was Comedy
Huge.
Central. Yeah.
Comedy Central was like it, you
Yeah.
know? So
That's what we were all fighting for back then.
yeah, I moved back to Cleveland. I was in Toledo. I moved back to Cleveland. I was humbled a little bit because it's a bigger scene,
Yeah.
obviously. And
Did you
then,
move back in with your parents?
No, my sister got pregnant.
Okay.
She was 18. And so I moved in with her. She got kicked out of my dad's house. So me and her moved in together and raised a baby, which
Shout
should
out
have
to
never
you.
happened. But I was doing comedy and bartending all for the next, I mean, that was 2012. So for the next 7 years, it was a mixture of comedy and bartending.
You had mentioned it was a little humbling because it was a bigger scene. Was it something that when you say humbling, I understand what you mean, but for the listeners, was it you weren't getting up as much as you thought?
I wasn't
You
doing
weren't
as well as I
progressing?
was used to doing.
Okay.
I
Because that
wasn't-
can go in a lot of different directions. Like, I'm not getting booked enough. I'm not traveling enough.
I was
You
getting
just-
booked all the time.
But you just
I
weren't
was,
doing.
I was bombing for the first time.
Okay.
Like 6 months into comedy.
So even with the classes, after you were doing the classes, when you were going to the open mic in Toledo on Thursdays, you were still doing well?
I mean, I'm telling you, I do not remember bombing until I went to Cleveland.
Okay, so then you get to Cleveland, and then
And then I was like,
What is
why
that?
are people not laughing?
Okay, yeah, that's
like,
what I wanna
don't
ask.
understand what the problem is.
When you're on stage and you tell that first joke and it doesn't land, do you remember the
I
feeling?
remember my first hard bomb in Cleveland. It was at a punk rock dive bar.
Yeah.
And
As they are.
it was on a Sunday night, and it was like $2 whiskeys at this dive bar. And it was set up in a way that the bar was kind of a U shape, and the stage was at the very front of the bar. So you're standing, and then people are on your left and your right.
Yeah. So the bar is kind of like going
In the
out.
middle, and then
Yeah.
the seating is on either side. And I'm standing and I'm looking, but I'm like 22. I'm doing jokes about being a cheerleader. I'm doing jokes about, like, I was 120 pounds, but it was about, like, oh my God, I'm gaining weight. And, like, I'm at a punk rock dive bar in Cleveland, Ohio, with people who are drinking $2 whiskeys on Sunday night.
Yeah.
Okay? These people do not give a fuck about me. And they're
got
like,
nothing going on
40.
tomorrow.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's one of those where they're like, it was the first time I wasn't relating. It was
Yeah.
the first time that I was like, oh, these people hate me, because I didn't realize I was kind of the antithesis of that entire place.
Yeah.
I'm a little tiny blonde. Like, oh my God, isn't life hard? And they're
Oh my
like,
God.
right. And they're like, no, you've never suffered a day in your life.
Yeah.
You know? That was my first real hard bomb, and I cried, and I was like, maybe I don't want to do comedy anymore.
Did you? Okay,
Like,
so you had that feeling of.
Yeah.
Was it like maybe I just don't want to do comedy, or did you start to like really panic about
I
like
didn't wanna
I
go-
left school? What am I
No,
doing?
not at all.
Okay,
Not
okay.
after the first bomb. I
Okay.
did never go back there again.
Yeah.
Where I was like, that place must just, they're wrong.
Yeah.
That's not my place.
Okay.
Um,
Because I've had people on this show where they've had bombs to the point where they're like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I've made a
Yeah, we
horrible
all do.
mistake." I've had a couple of those.
if you don't have that, then
I had
mean,
one
we
of
talk
those-
about being delusional, but if you feel like you've never bombed or you've never
There's
questioned
something, yeah.
if this is right for you,
I think that's where our competitive nature kind of shines, is because it keeps the delusion in check.
you
where,
need a certain amount of delusion, and you do need a certain amount of
like my competitive nature. If I come off stage and I didn't crush, I'm like, you got to get better, dude.
self-awareness.
Got to get better. Yeah.
It's a little dance between being self-aware and being delusional.
Yeah.
You need to be delusional enough to think you can do it, but self-aware enough to know when it's not working.
Yeah, exactly. Because there have been times where like I'll talk to people and I'll be like, I don't know, maybe I made a mistake, like moving to New York, and then
That's how I've felt for a year.
I'll go to shows and I'll be like, oh no, I'm way better than all these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm all right. I'm gonna be fine. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be fine.
You need that though. Yeah. So
So then you go back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
You have a couple of rough sets. You get humbled, but you're still working at it.
and then I came up in the ranks there. And then I was there for, I mean, like I said, from 2012 to 2019. And 2019 is when I started working the road. All right, let me start over. I feel like I'm all over the place.
You're good.
In the Midwest.
I'm tracking.
And I'm not going to say for everywhere, but specifically Ohio, and from what I know about working in the Midwest, you get on the road pretty early.
Yeah.
When you're like 2 or 3 years in, and
I've
you've
heard this
got
from
the
other comics as
beginnings,
well, yeah.
the beginnings of 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to start featuring on the road,
Yeah.
doing 20 to 30.
Because there's a pretty sure bet that you're going to leave the Midwest. So they want
not even leave the Midwest.
No? Well-
It's that there's no work.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want to do more than 10 minutes at a local mic, you need to leave. That's
Okay,
all there
I
is
get
to
it.
it. You're
Okay,
not
that
going
makes
to ever
sense.
be able to do more time
Yeah.
unless you get in your car and drive 6 hours
That makes
to do
sense.
it.
Okay.
So then it was like, I'd say 3 or 4 years of featuring. Not even, maybe 2 years of featuring, where I probably 2014, 15, 16, I was featuring on the road.
Okay.
And so I was kind of honing that 20
Are
to
you
30.
featuring for specific comics or just for
No,
clubs?
that's not how it works in the Midwest.
Okay.
It was like you get sent to bumfuck. You're meeting a guy for the first time.
Yeah.
You might have to pick him up from the airport or even drive him there.
Got it.
You guys do this shithole club for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you go back. Or it might
Okay.
even be a one-nighter where I drive to
Yeah.
the middle of Indiana, 6 hours one way for $100 and no hotel. And then you either sleep in your car or you drive home.
Yeah.
You know, or you try to string together 4 or 5 of those
triple
to
run,
make
yeah.
some money. But you start doing that 2 or 3 years in. So I did that for like 3 years. It was never like it is now where people are like, oh, so-and-so takes me on the road.
Yeah.
That was not a thing.
Okay.
It was like features and headliners were booked separately.
Okay.
And so features were usually booked locally, and then they had like a national booker who would book headliners. So I had my couple clubs that I was in at, my little one-nighters, my little Elks clubs that I would do.
Yeah.
And I would crush, and it was great. And so
Are you
like,
still doing the cheerleader material?
no, absolutely. That'd be the saddest set ever. If I was 35,
No, not
out there
now.
like
I'm
doing
talking
my
about,
cheerleader material.
like 5 years in, you're
Oh,
probably.
no,
I'm
no,
talking
no,
about
no.
when you're doing the featuring and
No,
stuff. When you're
no,
like
no,
in
no,
your
no, no.
mid 20s, late
No.
20s.
I
Because I'm
mean,
sure you could still get away with it. I mean, you could get away with it now.
I've been.
You don't look a day over 22.
Okay, my material has always grown with me and
Yeah.
always evolved with me because I'm a very personal comic. I'm very vulnerable.
As am I, yeah.
I'm very like about what's going
That's
on
the
in my life.
worst. When you're being very vulnerable and it doesn't hit. That's what.
hard.
That's when I'm like, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah,
Like,
I've
this is
cried
bad.
so many times.
So many times.
So it was kind of like,
What do you mean you don't get it?
what are you talking about? You've never felt this way? Like, I'm gonna kill it.
I'm all alone again.
Yeah. So it was that for a couple years, and then I quickly got moved up to headlining. So
Okay.
it was like 2016 was when I very first started kind of getting one-nighter headlining stuff, 2015, 2016. And so then I did that on the road until the pandemic.
Okay.
Until 2020.
And when you're doing comedy, because this is something that I want to get into, are you partying like on the road? Are you going crazy?
Yes.
Are you
Yes.
okay?
Like
So
hard.
okay,
Because for me, it was always, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
yeah,
Like even if it was $100, it was like, I cannot even believe I'm getting $100 to do this. This is crazy.
yeah. To go from where you were, like you said, watching this stuff, being like, I wouldn't even know how to start doing that. To now you're doing it and getting paid for it.
And I'm doing well, and
Yeah.
these people are loving me. And then you're in the middle of
that validation.
You're in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and it's like, yes, I want to do Jaeger bombs. Like, why would I not? Are you out of your mind? Please, I want to sleep in your basement. Take me to your house. Let's hang out in your hot tub. Like, why would I not do that? I'm a rock star. I'm a literal celebrity. Like, what are you talking about? And I think it just feeds into it because it's like, well, I don't have anywhere to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a 7-hour drive. I can drink until 4 or 5 in the morning.
Well,
you know?
that's the old adage. Jane Cook's Comedy Central presents. When he rips his shirt off, he literally has the rock band set up behind him. And
Yeah.
he goes, "I always wanted to be a rock star."
Yeah.
And comics is like a close second.
Yeah.
Because that's the lifestyle it is.
I mean, at any level.
Yeah.
You know, whether it is with hillbillies who are swingers and you wake up in an apartment, you're like, I should not be here. You know what I mean? And
Sounds like something.
there's so many times I should have died, dude. There's so many times where I was like, I can't believe that this is real.
Well, let's get into it. So I'm kind of unique. I don't know if you know. Most
Okay.
alcoholics think we're unique. No, I was different though, because everyone's like, "Oh, you played football, you must have been popular," but I wasn't. I was incessantly bullied all through high school. It wasn't until I got to college where I was like, "I'm going to change my life. Like, I'm not going to take this shit anymore." Where I finally stood up for myself. I remember the time and the place. The listeners have heard the story a million times, but I finally stood up for myself, and then. Because I did that off rip, like right when I got to college, it kind of got around like, oh, just don't fuck with Tassif.
Yeah.
And so I went from being the punching bag in high school to now being a popular party kid in college.
Yeah.
So I didn't party in high school. I maybe went to two or three like football parties my entire 4 years of playing high school football.
Mm-hmm.
So for you as a cheerleader, especially in Ohio, because it's like Texas is number one, and then Florida as far as like football being life. And I don't know if it's because I was raised by a family from Ohio, but Ohio's pretty passionate about that whole
Yeah, definitely.
lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So for you as a cheerleader, are you like getting after it when you're in high school, or like
Yes.
when does it start?
I started drinking, sharing beers with my friends when I was like 14.
Okay.
And then definitely drank through high school. I was at the parties when the parents were out of town.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember getting drunk in high school.
Okay.
I remember like playing beer pong and like hanging out and being a little silly, but I don't remember being like hammered.
Yeah.
And maybe people who drank with me in high school, but I remember watching my buddies who would get hammered.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of them where like, every time I go, Bobby's going to get drunk again. You know what I mean? But I remember like
Bob,
having fun
Yeah.
and just like being a part. Those were my friends. I was the popular kid. I
Yeah.
was in that social circle. I
Okay.
was going out and drinking after the football games on Fridays.
Yeah.
You know, like that's just who I was. And so I drank through high school. And then
Did you ever have any instances in high school where you were like, where it went too far? Like you just,
no.
because I know you said you never got drunk. But
I got
like,
picked up from the cops one time. Like my dad had to come pick me up from a house party, but I wasn't like, I was drunk. I was at 2 different house parties. I went to one and
You tried to just skate right through this. You had cops coming and everything.
Well, no. The cops busted the house party.
Oh,
you know
okay.
what I mean? It wasn't
yeah,
me.
Yeah.
I was at a one house party where my first time ever having jungle juice.
Yeah.
Where
I know.
I was like, for those of you who don't know, you make it in a trash can, and it's like 7 or 8 bottles of liquor and like pink lemonade and fruit punch, and then pieces of fruit.
It has to be the Hawaiian tropic fruit punch, or it doesn't
Any
count.
kind. It doesn't. I don't care what you put in it. It's a bunch of
Hawaiian
juice and giant plastic
the
bottles
big
of
plastic,
vodka.
the big plastic jugs.
So, and then you just dip your cup in it.
Yep.
And so I had like 2 or 3 cups of that, and then I went to a second house party.
You can use a ladle too. You don't have to be a savage about it.
We all just dipped our cups in it. There was no ladle. You're drinking out of a garbage can. You're gonna get shit
put
about a ladle.
bag in it.
I know. Either way, so I had jungle juice, and then I went to a friend's house. And
So at the first party, you have jungle juice,
Yeah.
and then you're like, all right, let's get
so
out of
and
here.
so is having another party
Yeah.
because like my boyfriend in high school, he was friends with like older
Quarterback?
kids. No, he was actually a basketball player.
Ooh.
Basketball player, cross country runner, baseball player. So
That's
he
a
didn't do
weird
football. Yeah.
Trifecta.
So
Normally, it's a very specific person who does one of those sports. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
he did baseball. He did baseball. I know for a fact he played basketball and cross country.
Okay.
Anyway.
Tall?
So yes. He was
Lanky.
like 6'2", like
Yeah,
skinny.
Of course.
Um
Cross country gave that away.
So he was at the first party with his he had an older brother, so we were always hanging out with his older brother's friends.
Was this, I don't mean to interrupt, but was this high school sweetheart, like all 4 years?
High school sweetheart, all 4 years.
Okay.
So I was like 14. I
Yeah.
was a freshman, and I'm hanging out with seniors because he was a year older than me, and then
the
his brother's
brothers,
friends
yeah.
were 2 years older than him.
Got it.
So I was always the youngest person, but I was drinking with those people, you know? And I left to go to a party at someone in my grade.
Yeah.
And we went to their house, and someone was making screwdrivers, and I just remember they were just so bad. It was cherry vodka and orange juice. I remember to this day. And I was starting to feel really drunk, and so I asked the person whose house it was for bread, and I was like eating the bread.
Look at you.
And then
Look
I
at
was
you.
like
That's
looking
smart.
around, and then
As
I'll
a
never forget
freshman
it.
in high school to know to make that decision.
At one point, I started dipping the bread in the juice,
That's
and
disgusting.
I was eating it. But the cops came.
I'm going to vomit.
was
That's
so
so
gross.
gross.
The cops came, and everyone like scattered and ran and hide, and people
Yeah.
were jumping over fences, and I like hid up in a bedroom or a bathroom or something, and they found us, and I had to call my dad. And my dad comes and he picks me up, and I remember that drive home where I was drunk, and I was sitting there, and I couldn't believe that my dad just had to pick me up drunk.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there, and my dad's like, "What are you doing? Like, what the fuck is going on? How many times are we going to do this? Like, is this going to be the first time, or is this going to be the last time? Like, what are we doing right now?" And I was like, "Am I drunk, Dad? I had one Smirnoff Ice. I don't know what happened."
Was Smirnoff Ice?
And he was like, "You did not have one Smirnoff, you know?" And so
was your dad like a party guy, or was he like
my
a
dad was
stricter
sober.
parent?
My dad was a like cold turkey sober guy.
Okay.
He never went to meetings, he never did that, but I never
Just
knew
one day woke up and was like, I'm not doing this.
I never knew my dad to drink.
Okay.
He always said that it was once he started to have kids.
Okay.
He quit drinking.
That makes sense. I asked because I come from like a family that likes to get after it. So
Yeah, we were Christian.
Like-
Christian.
Oh, really? Okay, I
Really
didn't see that.
very
That was a curveball. I didn't see that coming.
Pentecostal, speaking in tongues.
Wow, like
evangelical
the you're healed
retreats.
kind of thing,
Yes. We were very, very, very Christian.
Okay.
And
So your dad said first time, last time.
I remember being so
That's a great. I'm going to
upset.
use that.
Yeah.
That's a great line.
I
Is this going to be
remember-
the first time, or is
Or
this going to be the last time? I
That's
like
from a
that.
movie too.
Is it?
It's
That's
from,
like my thing. I have like 20 minutes of material on how I steal movie lines and use them in real life.
It was Breakfast Club.
Oh, okay.
When the dork, it's either the dork or the
Isn't it not the principal, but the
no, it's the
teacher?
dork's mom drops him
Oh,
off, and
okay.
she's like, "Is this the first time or the last time we're gonna do this?"
See,
So
I've only seen Breakfast Club once, and it was a
Oh,
long
I
time
love
ago,
that
so I didn't
movie.
remember.
I don't even know if my dad said that. I could have just taken that from Breakfast Club, to be 100% honest with you. But he was very disappointed, and I hated disappointing my parents.
Of course.
I was good at everything. I was top of my class, straight A's I didn't get my first B until I was in college.
Damn.
Like, I was head of everything, captain of cheer, captain of dance, dating the star basketball player. Like, I was the guy. My brothers called me Captain High School. Like,
Yeah.
anything I could do, I was the president of my class. Like, I was
See, that's
always
interesting
up there.
because I was the kind of person where I was a phenomenal test taker, but I hated busy work. So I would always get like B's, sometimes C's.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, once I already got it accepted to the college I was going to go to, I just kind of stopped trying. So then I was getting like D's in classes, and my dad was like, "The fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
But I was like, it's over, whatever. And I actually did better in college than I did in high school because college is 2 tests and a paper.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can do this. But like the go home every night and like do like a page of math homework, I was like, fuck off.
I hated my home life. So I dove headfirst
retreated
into
into
every
school,
single
yeah.
thing I could do in
Okay.
school. I was in every activity. I was anything I could do to not be at home.
That's awesome.
So I would like stay after school and do my homework
not
at
the
school.
home life thing, but like
right.
to be a cheerleader, you know, obviously there's a stereotype of like, oh, she's just hot and dumb and blah,
No.
blah, blah. But you were like, no, I'm
I'm very smart.
I've got a resume that could get me into fucking Yale, dude. Back up.
That was a difference, maybe not in just my high school, but there is that like dumb jock, and we had those. We had those guys who
I
got
know
their
quite a few of them.
D's and F's, and the history teacher was the football coach, so
Yeah.
they fudged the numbers. We had those. But my group of friends, we were all athletes, and we were all in like talented and gifted. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys had that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
called it tag.
We had IB at my high school. I was an IB.
So it was from the time we were in 6th grade.
Okay.
There was like 10 or 12 of us
Yeah.
that were in this talented and gifted program, and we kind of were all in AP classes together, but we were all athletes.
So
and
we
it
had
was like,
separate. We actually had separate schools for that stuff.
oh, okay.
So like there was the gifted elementary school and then the regular elementary school, and then there was the one high school in the area that had the International Baccalaureate program, which is like AP on steroids, and then every high school offered AP. But like if you were like one of those kids, you went to I went to Spruce Creek in Florida, even though I was zoned for Mainland, which was the state championship,
Yeah.
like all football all the time. Vince Carter went there. Like a bunch of guys that went there ended up playing in the NFL. Like that's the school I was zoned for. But because I was in IB, I had to go to a different school,
Yeah,
like a smart
okay.
kid school.
Yeah. So we just had separate classes.
Yeah.
Where it was like in middle school, it was called tag, and it was like 2 periods. So it was like an hour and a half instead of the like shorter
Mm-hmm.
classes where we would go. It was one class. There couldn't have been more than 15 of us.
Yeah.
And then we did that for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And we did like separate projects and things like that. And that was through middle school. And then you started to do AP classes. But we were all smart. Most of the athletes, like there was a thing in my group of friends where it was like you didn't want to be a fuck up.
Yeah.
It was like kind of like our friends would look at each other and be like, what are you doing getting a C?
Yeah.
You know, like that was very much the
wrong
vibe.
with you, yeah.
And there were fuck ups, but
Yeah.
my close friends, it was like that wasn't really an option.
That's how I was, again, as a good test taker, that's how I'd be on like test days.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't do homework, which is why my grades would suffer. But like on test days, I'd go in there and like finish first and be like, yo, let's go. Like, what
Yeah.
do we do? Like
Yeah.
trying to hype everybody else up.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, that took through college, same thing. I was drinking. I didn't drink.
So when you were, I'm interested in this. So when
Yeah.
you were going to parties and stuff, were you regimented about it? Were you like, I can only party on Friday nights
No.
because I have to be? Okay, so you were just dealing.
But we didn't really drink during the week, though. That
That's what I
wasn't
was
really a
gonna say,
thing.
yeah.
It was like the Friday after football games was
Okay.
always the big night to party.
So it was almost unintentionally, that was just the night that everyone went out and
Just
partied.
because we did our football game and then we would all go home and change and get ready and then go meet at someone's house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we would drink. Like,
Yeah.
that's just how it was.
And then Saturday you recover. Sunday, obviously, you're going to church, and then
Yeah,
the
yeah,
week
pretty
starts.
much. And then, so that was high school, was a lot of that. And then my high school sweetheart and I broke up my senior year.
Was that devastating?
Yeah, I cheated on him. And
Okay,
so it was
so-
like I ruined it. And so
Yeah.
I completely withdrew from my entire friend group because it was one of my very good friends that I cheated on him with. And so I like basically alienated myself from that entire group of people I've known
Were
my entire
you-
life.
This is something I find fascinating. Were you shunned by the friend group, or did you
I
personally?
pulled back.
Okay.
I pulled back and said, in a way to prove to him, I love you, I'm serious about this, I want to stay with you, I won't speak to any of these people anymore.
Okay. Like you were punishing yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
very much so. So my senior year kind of sucked. And so I like basically
Oh, so was this early on in the senior year?
halfway through.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did the basketball season go for him?
He was a year older than me, so he was
Okay.
in college.
So he was done. Okay.
So
Because that can really, I mean, don't mean, I'm not trying to make a joke. Like that can fuck somebody's day up.
sure.
And then as an athlete, it's a lot mental.
Yeah.
And I asked that because I'm like, did scholarships at your senior year, scholarships were on the line
Yeah,
and that
no,
kind of
he
stuff.
was already in college.
Okay. Was he
So-
playing basketball in college?
No.
Okay.
He went to a liberal arts school.
Ugh.
And he was in theater and stuff. Yeah.
I mean,
So-
good for him, but like a 3-sport athlete, man. Come on.
It was a switch. When
What are
he
we
was
doing?
like, I want to do plays, I was like, okay, like whatever. I liked plays too, but
Yeah.
I was like, you've never ever shown interest in a play. Like I didn't know this part of you existed.
I'm an actor, Mary.
Yeah. So
Nobody understands
So my senior year, I kind of withdrew from all that. I quit drinking. I said I wasn't ever going to drink again. And
Okay.
and I wasn't drunk when I did that. I
You were
was
just like, yeah.
I was just needed attention. And this guy was giving it to me, and my boyfriend was in college. I was 17. You know what I mean? And so I didn't drink that whole year. And then I don't think I drank my freshman year of college either.
Wow. So when you get to, because Toledo's not a small school.
No.
It's a D1 school.
Yeah.
So when you get there and you're cheering, are you on a scholarship for cheer?
Yes, but their scholarships for cheer were books.
Oh,
That's it.
really?
You got free books. That was it. You didn't get any money toward tuition or anything like that. You got like
I knew a couple of cheerleaders at FAU that were on full rides.
It depends on the school, but
okay.
they didn't give a shit about cheerleading. It wasn't like they didn't take it seriously at all. So I think we got like a $500 a semester credit for books, and that was it.
Because there are, to your point, with Title IX, they have to decide where the scholarships are going to go. So
Yeah,
I guess
they did never
depending
go to
on.
cheerleading.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But we had a really, really good women's basketball team.
I was going to say basketball or volleyball or softball.
Women's,
is
they
normally-
won the WNIT like every year.
Damn.
Yeah, the women's basketball team was really good, but they hated when they would make the cheerleaders cheer for them. They hated us so much. Like, we don't need cheerleaders here, but we would always cheer at tournament games.
I'm sure some of those girls like that.
Yeah, some of them probably.
Ew.
But gay?
Gay?
No. So
Well,
in
yes.
college, I didn't really start drinking again until my high school sweetheart and I broke up again.
So you get back together.
We got back together. We
So
stayed together,
you
and then
did
we
your year penance of like, I'm not going to do anything.
Yes.
And then
It was
he
like my
all right?
sophomore year, right before I turned 21. So I was like 20, and when we were like, this isn't gonna work.
But how did you get back together?
We just stayed together. I told him about it. We tried to work through it. We
Oh, so
like
you guys
that kind
didn't
of
actually break up then?
thing. We did,
I thought, yeah.
but it wasn't like there wasn't ever a time when we weren't talking.
Yeah.
Or
Very
I wasn't
Jason Street,
calling
Lila
him, or
Garrity,
he wasn't
Friday Night
calling
Lights
me.
kind of a thing.
Sure,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever that is. Yeah.
She cheats on him with his best friend, but then they end up just like kind of squashing it for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, and it never really went away.
Yeah.
You know, but
it doesn't. As
no.
someone who's been cheated on quite a few
No,
times.
it never went away.
It doesn't matter if you're 17 or you're 35. It's not going to go away.
So I started drinking again right before I turned 21. I was dating this guy who went to BG actually, and he was
dating a rival.
I know, he was 2 years older than me, so he was like 22, and we would go out, and they just didn't ask. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it was like, yeah, we just go get us some shots, and it was in the time when one person could walk up and order
Yeah.
15 shots, and
they were like,
nobody
yeah, sure.
was like asking
Nobody
for
bats
IDs. They
an
didn't
eye.
give a shit. They're like, go get your little girlfriend drunk.
I
Like, it
remember
doesn't matter.
when I was a freshman, because this is in Florida. When I was a freshman, we were going up to playing college football. We were in line for a bar, and I've told the story before, but you'll appreciate it. Jason Harmon, who was a year older than me, was like the star tight end. He was receiving tight end, so he's a lanky like guy, big, tall guy. And I remember we're in line, and I go, Jason. He goes, what's up, man? I go, I'm like 18. I don't have an ID. And he
Yeah.
goes, dude, we're Division I college football players in Florida. We can do whatever the
Do whatever
fuck
the hell
we
could
want.
kill somebody, dude. It
I
doesn't
was
matter.
like, okay, here we go. And then when we get up to the front door, one of our backup middle linebackers at the time, because he was my age, is the bouncer. And I was like, what's up, dude?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. So
Yeah.
I started working at a bar, and that's kind of where my problem drinking started.
Okay.
So
is this when you're 21?
just about 2021?
Okay, so where are you at as far as your career at Toledo? Because you ended up leaving. So what year is
I hadn't
this?
dropped out yet. This
Okay.
is my sophomore year.
Okay.
Sophomore into junior,
right?
because
Yeah.
we moved off campus halfway through our sophomore year.
Okay.
And that's kind of when I started to drink more, and I was going to house parties. We were hosting house parties.
When did you, I'm very curious as to when you made that decision to start drinking again, because you kind of mentioned it, but like, was it like a...
It's when we broke up, because I was not drinking for him.
Okay. So you guys break up, you finally make the decision, hey, we're just going to end this. And
Yeah.
then you and you're like consciously or subconsciously were like, okay, I'm going to start partying
Yeah,
again.
I'm in
Okay.
college.
Yeah.
Let's go out.
No,
You
it
know
makes
what I mean?
total sense. I just wanted to get the timeline.
Yeah,
right.
so we go out. I meet this guy. My roommate's dating him. I meet his roommate, and now we're dating
Yeah.
roommates and whatever. We're going to BG every weekend, and that's when I would say like the problem drinking started is when I was working at the bar, just because it was so accessible. And I was 20, and I had never not been
You're
in
hot,
a
you're
relationship.
blonde,
I was hot,
you're-
blonde,
yeah.
cheerleader. Like there was no reason for me
Crushing
not
life.
to hook up with everybody. Like there was no reason for it. At one
Bars open, boys.
Dude, at one point, I remember saying to my college roommate, because she was like, dude, you're sleeping with a lot of people. And I was like, yeah, but we were like a condom, so it doesn't count. I like remember that being like, don't high five at me for that. That's so the worst. But that was like legitimately how I was looking at sex. Where it was like the number doesn't count if you wear a condom. Which is so terrible, but it's true. That's how I felt.
As someone who's never worn one, I agree.
You wouldn't
I
know.
wholeheartedly agree.
So we, so I had.
And Florida just doesn't come up.
No, dude. I had a very significant hoe face after
Grow
my.
up. Take that off. Grow up.
What are you doing? I had a very significant hoe phase after my high school sweetheart and I broke up. I had never slept with anybody else.
No, I'm not laughing at the whole face. I'm still laughing about the condom.
Oh,
thing.
it didn't count. It didn't count if you were a condom.
Please tell me you talk about that on stage.
No.
That's hilarious.
No, because it's not funny because
I
people
know.
don't want to hear women
That's
talk
true.
about sex.
That's true.
It's so stupid. Anyway.
I know, but to me, that's hilarious.
Yeah. It's
Maybe it's just because I can relate to it, but
Yeah.
that's very funny.
So that's when I really started drinking heavy. That's when I remember partying, like shots, blackouts.
Are you
I
just
wanna-
drinking?
At that point, yeah, I smoked
Okay.
a little bit of weed. I had an Adderall prescription, so I was abusing that.
So you don't need the
I
don't
didn't
need
need
the
to do-
others.
I didn't-
yeah.
no, I
you don't
didn't
need
do
the
anything
uppers because
else.
you got the uppers.
I didn't do anything else until way later in my drinking career, but it was pretty much just weed and drinking.
See, I love drinking.
Oh, you
So-
know what I did?
What?
What we loved as a college athlete. A lot of our cheerleader guys were prescribed muscle relaxers
Yeah.
because you have full people standing on you. Okay,
Flexeril. Love it.
Flexeril.
Let's go. Who are you talking to right now?
It was the best. So I fucked heavy with pills.
Yeah.
Where it was like, when I was like, no, it's just weed. I was like, no. There were a lot of days that fueled the blackouts where we would do this thing. It was me and like 3 of the guys on the team. And we would, I don't want to be doing, disclaimer, I don't want to be saying this in a way that it's funny and laughing at it because it absolutely 100% is substance abuse and definitely
Yeah.
problematic. But like we would,
Well, we can laugh or we could cry. I mean,
there were 4 of us, the same 4 that would always do it whenever we did a house party at the cheer house. We would,
the cheer house.
it was where there was like 5
Gosh.
cheerleaders who lived there. And so that's where we would party.
1-800-sleuths.com. Let's
It was the
go.
guys. It was the guys' house, not the girls'
same,
house.
Same.
Yeah. So
Guys can be horse too.
they had everyone had Flexerol, and we would everybody got their own. You'd crush it up, you'd snort it, and then you'd chug a beer.
Yeah.
And then whoever blacked out first lost. That was the game. That was the game. Was let's see who can last
Who
the
can
longest.
maintain?
Who can stay standing the longest. But you got to think, a lot of the guys who are cheerleaders in college didn't make the team for football, wrestling, things like
Yeah.
that. They are big
They're athletes,
dudes.
yeah.
They're big
That's
guys.
hard, yeah.
So I'm a little like 115 trying to party with
flex.
these guys. I lost every time. Every
Yeah.
time.
Of
I was the one
course.
who went down. So,
It's biology.
yes, exactly.
It is interesting. Hannibal Buress has that great bit where he talks about they tell you not to, when you get prescribed pills, they tell you not to drink on them, but that's just because they don't want you having fun.
Right. Well, that's
But
exactly
that's-
what
yeah.
we learned was like, look how much fun we can have. So,
Xanax
that-
was another big one when I was in college.
I never fucked with Xanax.
I was always a drinker. Drinking is my passion.
Drinking
that
was
was my love.
first. Drinking came first.
So,
but if
all
you
the
want to
other
slip me a little pill, I'll take a little
Yeah,
pill.
that's the thing.
I don't even really care what it is.
Extracurriculars, I would always do.
Yeah.
But I was never looking for.
No. If it came up, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Except Coke. Coke was the one that I always turned down because I knew how much I liked my Adderall.
Yeah.
That I was like, if this prescribed drug makes me feel this happy and lets me drink forever,
Mm-hmm.
I have no money. So I'm going to not do Coke because I know I'm going to like it.
That's a smart call. Because I started doing Coke because I was like, I keep blacking out, and I didn't have a
Let me
Adderall
do a little
prescription.
bit of Coke.
So I got into that.
Mine was, let me boof a little. Let me do my little Adderall. Did you ever do those where you put
No.
the Adderall into a napkin and then you poof it up like a
Yeah, I get what
like
you're
a
saying.
parachute?
Yeah.
And then you just go like that and it all goes. There's no reason to do it that way. You can just as easily open it up and pour it under your tongue. But we did that for whatever, like that, and then it would parachute to the
Into
back
your
of your mouth.
lungs?
Yeah. I don't know why that's how we did it, but that's how we did it.
Yeah, I remember getting into it, and I was like, oh, I can drink forever with this.
You drink forever.
And after
And you're
that, it
hungover
was-
for 3 days.
After that, it was over.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell it in the one man show. I spent $26,000 in 28 days in Daytona
On Coke.
because I got a settlement from a car accident just between booze, strip clubs, and cocaine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even real Coke.
No.
Like, but
Why would it be?
I mean, the tag is like even really shitty Coke gets expensive if you do enough of it.
Yeah.
Like if you just keep buying it.
How
It
much
was-
baking soda do you think you have to snort
It
until you
was
start to get high?
so much baby aspirin.
You know what I mean?
It burned so bad.
You shouldn't feel like this.
And I was like, I went to college in South Florida. I know it's not supposed to feel like this.
So yeah, so I really started partying in college. That
Yeah.
was my and I
So like towards sophomore, junior years when you
Yes.
were like out of your cage.
yes, when I was just going out every night.
Yeah.
But I was still doing well in school. I was in pharmacy. I was still getting good grades.
Yeah, you were.
But this is, I know, right? This is the first time in my life I had ever gotten a B. This is the first time in my life
This
I
is
had
where
ever
the B came.
felt rejection because pharmacy school was so fucking hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard. And I am good at school.
Yeah.
Like I am good at math and science. Those are my two. And when I started to really, really struggle, and is there a parallel between partying? Not really, because I never
It had never affected you before.
struggled with
Yeah.
school. It didn't matter I could be hungover, I could be still drunk, and I never struggled with school. Organic chemistry was the class that broke me. It was the first C I had ever gotten.
Oh,
I
shit.
retook it twice, and I got a C and a C plus. So that was the first time in my life I had given something everything that I had and not succeeded. And a C plus is not succeeding, but it's not an A, and it tanked my science GPA. So now it got to the point where I was like, what do I do? Because you had a regular GPA and a science GPA, and your science GPA.
We had overall and core, so like
You
whatever
had-
your major was your core GPA.
we had our science GPA was what you used to apply for pharmacy.
Yeah.
And mine
Same
was
thing with our political science GPA is what we used to apply for law school.
yeah. So mine was like in the high threes. It was like a 3.7, but everyone else I'm applying against is a 4.0.
Yeah.
So a 3.7 isn't shit. But I was hoping, okay, well, I'm a college athlete and I'm the president of an honor society and I had all these co-curriculars, but having a 3.7 was just
Really, even
unacceptable.
with all the
Didn't matter. It was super. Toledo was number 7 in the country for pharmacy.
wow.
Yeah, Ohio Northern was like number 3, but it was so
Really?
competitive I couldn't even get in.
That's
yeah,
great. That's a
Yeah.
school I've never even heard of.
it's in the middle of nowhere.
And you saw how quickly I pulled out the Rockets.
Yeah.
Like I know colleges.
I don't think they even have sports. Like it's
Oh.
it's one of those where they're real tiny and they're
Nerds.
very serious. Yeah.
Even Yale has sports.
So when pharmacies, I had to really make a choice where I was like, I don't think this is going to work for me.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I don't want to leave the state. I don't want to.
Have you started comedy at this point?
No, my
Okay.
roommate was applying to different pharmacy schools. She ended up going to school in like North Carolina or something like that. But I didn't want to leave Ohio. I was like, I don't want to go to another school. I want
Yeah.
to be here. I want to cheer. All my friends are here. Like, my family's here.
So what do you mean applying for pharmacy school? Is that something you do as like as a junior?
Yeah, you do 2 years of undergrad
Got
and then
it.
you apply for
Got
the
it.
4-year
That makes sense.
doctorate degree.
Because a lot of time, okay, that makes sense. Because a lot of times, normally you have to have an undergrad and then you apply.
Yeah, you do 2 years of undergrad and then
Okay.
you apply.
But
in
I'm saying
between
for
your-
like law school, you get a bachelor's in something and then you apply to law school. For medical school, you get a bachelor's in
it's
something.
a bachelor's
and then,
of sciences in pharmaceutical sciences.
Okay, so
BSPS.
it's incredibly specific
Yes.
to this track.
Yes.
So it's not even like you could get that bachelor's and be like, yeah, I've got a 4
No.
years bachelor's.
There's nothing you can do with
Yeah.
it. There's nothing you can do with
So
it.
it's like once you get there, it's like this is the road you're on.
So that's where I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, so I decided that goes hand in hand. There's a lot of math involved. I'm very, very good at math. I've always been very good at math. It's always been my best subject. And so I was like, maybe I'll be a math teacher. I love math so much that maybe this is what I'll do. So I switched my major from pharmacy to math education. And
A lot of those credits transfer over.
No, so I ended up getting my bachelor's was like a bachelor's of science in mathematics or something like that
Yeah.
because I had so many math credits. They
a
were
math
just
degree,
like,
yeah.
you basically already have a math degree.
Okay.
And so I switched to math education, crushing my math classes, like really struggling in my education classes.
Are
Because
you?
I'm like, I hate this.
It's a right brain, left brain thing.
Every
Yeah.
education class I had, I was like, this sucks. I don't want to go. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care about development. I like math. So then I was like at this crossroads of what do I
You
want
be
to
at
do?
MIT or something, not a fucking.
Dude, I'm very smart. And what's so
But and
funny
you
is I
love
feel
math. Like mine's history.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's like history and politics. So like I understand that feeling of like. I took, because I was an athlete, I was able to take like senior level courses as a freshman
Yeah.
and fucking crush them. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
And then as a senior, they're like, oh, you still have to take your prereqs. Like
Yeah.
you never took those.
Yeah.
And now I'm not playing football anymore. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm drunk all the time and I'm just in this class like, everyone knows what a thesis is. The fuck are we doing?
Yeah, dude. Well, like my big thing was when you get into those upper level math classes, it's mostly engineering.
Yeah.
And so I was like one of 2 women in the class. And there'd be times when I'd like have a game that night, like a basketball game. So I'd be in my like Calc 4 in my cheer outfit, and it's all nerds. And
God,
me just
probably
like
so many boners around you.
But I was like one of the top in the class,
Yeah.
and I knew it pissed them off. I knew it
Yeah,
pissed
of
them off
course.
because I would look around and they'd be so mad that I would get like the best score on the test or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember like I would study in the engineering part because I was like, these are the only other kids who are in these math classes. So if I was always studying by myself. It was the first time I felt like
You
an
and my brother would
outsider.
get along because he was an athlete all through high school and stuff, and then ended up going to Florida on a full ride for engineering, and
Yeah.
then went to Cornell. But he's like loved to party, like could
Yeah.
show up drunk, and he'd still ace class. He was like he got like a 1590 on his SATs,
Well, so,
just
like,
murdering.
I'd be
things.
in the engineering like department studying or doing homework or whatever, and there'd be like a group of kids that I know from my Calc 4 class or from whatever Diffie Q, and I'd go over there and I'd be like, hey, can you guys kind of help me with this? Like, I don't really understand this part of it. And every time it was met with like, like rolling their eyes, like, oh,
Really?
the cute girl doesn't get it. And I'm like, I'm fucking smarter than you. Like, just try. Can you just help me with this one? I can't figure out number 27. Can you help me with number
I just
27?
need 27. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
I got
it.
1 through 50. I just need 27.
But so I changed my major. Because I changed my major, I had a huge course load, and then I was like, I don't think I can.
Are you still
cheer.
bartending and stuff now?
I'm working at the bar.
Yeah.
I'm waitressing, and I was like, I don't think I can
Huge
do
loads.
26 credits and cheer.
26?
It was heavy.
That's so many.
I had an insane.
That's over
course
double
load.
what a full-time student is.
I know. It was insane because I was like, I have to make up for lost time in these math and
'cause
education classes.
You want to stay on track. You don't want to. Yeah.
So I decided not to try out for cheerleading. And it was like, I'm not exaggerating, one of like the most heartbreaking things I've ever had to do. Because
been
I
a
did it my
cheerleader your
whole
whole
life.
life, yeah.
And so I had to make the decision where I was like, I don't have the time to do this. And this is right around the time my ex and I decided we weren't going to be together anymore. And I was like, starting at the bar. My life was
Yeah.
really chaotic. So like in a year's span, I had gotten done with cheerleading. I didn't have my high school sweetheart. Like I was changing majors. Like everything was falling apart.
Oh, so this all happened in the same time
This
frame.
all happened in like my sophomore year.
Okay.
And so sophomore, junior year, and then I turned 21. So like it was a perfect storm for me to start partying.
Yeah.
It was a perfect storm for me to be like, well, I don't want to worry about all these things that are stressing me out. So let's do drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So college.
Passes that first.
Yeah, college was when I really started partying. Comedy, it just is it lends itself so easily to partying.
So what happens? So we talked about the comedy already, and then you brought us all the way up to the pandemic. So what happens to where you were like, I've got to pump the brakes on this. Like
On
I gotta
drinking?
relax. Yeah.
So I drank. I've never stopped drinking after college. That was like my decade of partying.
Yeah.
Like 20 to 29 was heavy blackouts. That was my thing.
So that was in
blacked out.
college and then even after college.
Yeah, so-
after college you moved back. You
Back
said
to
back
Cleveland.
to Cleveland.
I
You're living with your sister.
I got a job at a bar that my friend owned.
Yeah, of course.
So the amount of times I should have been fired from that place. We had we had trivia on Wednesdays, and I was the bartender on Wednesdays, and there were like prize baskets that always had a bottle of wine in it. And my trivia team
Your bottle
never
of wine?
drank the bottle of wine, so I would chug it. That was like my trick.
Oh,
like
I thought,
watch me chug this
I
bottle
thought
of wine.
you would just take the bottle of wine out of the prize basket.
No.
and then-
I was like on the winning team
Yeah.
every week, and so I would literally like chug the bottle of wine, and it was while I'm working.
Yeah.
Like it was not good
You guys
for
want
me.
to see a cool trick? Watch this.
But my buddy
Mary,
owned.
show him the trick.
Dude, my buddy owned the bar.
Yeah.
So it was just like, he's not going to fire me. He's going to send me home.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, you're too drunk. You don't get your shift on next Wednesday. Come back next Friday. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It was that kind of shit. So then it was just all downhill from there. I started dating a guy who was, dude, this is why when I text you and I was like, there's too many stories. Because now I'm remembering the time.
I want to talk about how you stopped though. We'll have you back on. I mean, you
Because
live
I'm
right
like,
up the-
there's like 5 stories that lead to the bottom.
You live right up the street. You'll
know.
come back.
So anyway, drinking gets out of control. I get engaged to this guy. It's a horrible, horrible toxic relationship that is fully built on alcoholism. Both of us are drinking. This is 2014. Well, we started dating, I think in 2013, which is peak craft beer. This is when craft beer like exploded. So being an alcoholic, I was like, oh my God, this is a 12% beer. I love this.
It tastes like candy.
I can have 2 of these and I'm hammered.
Yeah.
This is how economic. This is incredible. And so our entire relationship was based off of craft beer and whiskey. But the thing that I hated and I resented him for every time, I was never a craft beer and whiskey person. I was a Bud Light and tequila girl.
Okay.
So, like, I'm not even who I am to be in this relationship. And we just fought. It was so toxic. We just fought and we were drunk for 3 straight years. And people say, like, I was drunk we were drunk this entire relationship. And so that was.
Drunk, drinking, or hungover?
Yes. 1,000%.
It's Joe List. He put it on my podcast.
That's exactly what it was. And so it was this.
And every other person I've had on that's like an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic is like, yeah, 100%. Couldn't relate
drinking
more to
or hungover.
anything.
That's all that it was. And so that was 3 years from 2013 to 2016. We broke up in a heinous way in 2016. He cheated on me with my best friend, and it was like this big explosion. Come significant hoe phase number 2 in 2017, and then into 2018.
A more mature hoe phase, as it were.
Not really.
No,
because I lived in a very densely like populated area of Cleveland, and there were bars. It's one of the only places in Cleveland that's super walkable.
Oh,
so
really?
there's bars within walking distance, and so I was
you're just
bartending
slaying.
and getting fucked up, and just it was just chaos. Me and both my sisters were all single the same summer, and it was just
you have
2 sisters.
2 sisters and then
brothers,
2 brothers.
So 5 of us.
Yeah.
But me and both my sisters were single the same summer.
What's going on? Are you still living with the sister with the baby?
Sister with a baby. The baby's now 4.
Okay.
So no, she's living with my mom. I'm living on my own.
Got it.
I lived with my ex. We broke up. I had to get my own apartment. I call it my divorce apartment. That's
There you
where
go.
most of my debauchery, however the hell you say it, happened.
Yeah, you're there.
So that's when it was like, after that breakup was really when it turned to let's drink to not feel.
Yeah.
So it was
not
like
fun anymore.
partying 20s, everything's fun, and then this toxic relationship, and then he left me. We got engaged after I found out he cheated on me. So that, I mean, it's a trash story. It's horrible. And so we get engaged.
I marked it, so the next time you come on, we'll talk about that relationship, folks.
That's why I was like, I could do this forever.
Don't worry, baby birds. We're going to feed you.
They, not to plug another podcast, but pretty much all of these stories are on other podcasts. The full story of him is on Guys We Fucked, where it was like, that's why I was asking you, I was like, I've told so many of these stories
well, and that's
on
why
so
when you
many
had told
different
me you
podcasts.
didn't tell me about the last one. You
So,
haven't talked about that. That's why I was like,
we're
we
like
gotta
so
talk about
far
that.
into this that I feel
know.
like I know we gotta wrap it up.
Take your time. I mean, I
So
don't have
that-
another episode till 2, so.
That it's 1:30.
Is it?
Yes.
We gotta wrap it up.
That's what I'm saying. That relationship ended, and then it was 2 years of really, really bad habits, like blacking out, drinking at home alone, like bottles and bottles of wine. I crashed 6 cars.
Jesus Christ.
Never got a DUI, which should
I've
not be
crashed
bragging.
0 cars, and I have 2.
Sucks, dude. I told you I'm the best at
I
everything I
remember
do.
when I was a pretty girl.
I'm the best at everything I do.
Did you ever get pulled over drunk?
Yeah, I would crash scene of the crime and then leave, and then never got caught. Until
Dun, dun, dun.
so it was, we broke up
Foreshadowing.
at the end of 2016, 2017, and 2018 were horrible.
Yeah.
It was the worst
Just
I've ever
surviving.
been. It was the fattest I'd ever been. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of my apartment. Like I was in full throes of addiction.
Yeah.
End of 2018, I start to see this guy, and we had gone out a couple times. It was like going well, but it was a very drinking based relationship.
Yeah.
And then there's a bar crawl in February, and this would have been like our 5th date or something like that. And I
Cold
was
in
like,
February.
it was a New Orleans one,
okay.
Mardi Gras.
Oh.
So whenever Mardi Gras is, that's like February, right? March?
Yeah, March, but it was funny.
No, it was my rock bottom was March 3rd. So the last
Okay.
week of February.
Yeah, it goes based on Fat Tuesday, which goes based off the Christian calendar, so it changes. Like how Easter sometimes is in April,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's in May.
So maybe he and I started talking in like February then. That would make more sense. February of 2019. And
It's just when you said bar crawl, Mardi
it
Gras,
doesn't
it's
matter
its
in
own
Ohio.
thing.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was a daytime bar crawl.
There's this little bar crawl down in New Orleans. You mean Mardi Gras? One of the biggest
No,
parties.
it was a Mardi Gras themed bar crawl.
Okay,
A Mardi
okay.
Gras themed bar. I wasn't describing Mardi Gras as
I
a bar
thought
crawl.
You were doing.
No.
That's why I was like, wow, you really are Midwest, huh?
No.
We
It
got
was
this nice little bar crawl we like to do.
no. It was a Mardi
With
Gras
the Cajuns.
Mardi Gras themed bar crawl.
Got it. It's cold up there in February.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And so I invited him. And I was like, this would have been, I think, our third or fourth date.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, this is like next Saturday. Why don't you come? Like, I'm going to go. It's going to be fun. It's, you get the little passport on a bar card, you get your stamps, and then you get a necklace or something. And so he was like, hey, I actually can't make it. I have to go back to my hometown. A friend of mine passed away. And I was like, oh, no, man. Like, do whatever you need to do. I'm so sorry. And the morning, I went out the night before the bar crawl, and I had that, like, hungover drunk when you wake up and you're like, I'm pretty drunk.
Yeah.
And so the way I handled that is that I would just do a shot.
Hair of the dog.
Because I'm like, well, if I'm going to be a little drunk, I might as well be drunk again.
I used to have to do shots for breakfast.
Yeah.
And it was fun when I was in college, but then when I was like 28 doing it.
And you're like,
Just
I need to fucking do a shot.
Yeah.
So that's where I was.
I was like, I can't drive to work. My hands are shaking.
No,
like,
I'll
I have
throw
to,
up
I
if
have
I don't
to
have a
do
shot.
a shot,
Yeah.
and then I can drive to work.
I called my gay best friend. I'm like, you want to go day drink? And he was like, absolutely.
100%.
I'm so down. Oh my God, now I just thought of another story with him in Florida. When I come back, I have to tell you how I got thrown out of a Denny's in Florida. It was in Key West. Anyway, so we're at this bar crawl, and we're having fun, and we're dancing, and everything's great, and we're just being friends and having fun and drunk at 11 a.m. We get to like the third spot on the bar crawl, and I'm pretty drunk. Like, it's getting to that point where I can feel myself, where I'm like, I'm gonna puke soon. Like, I need to figure this out. And across the bar, I see the guy who told me his friend died.
No.
And I explained the situation, because my friend looked at me and he was like, something's happening.
Yeah,
What's going on? I
they can
explained
feel
to
it.
him.
Yeah. Friends
and
can feel it.
he was like, don't go over there. I was like, I have to. Like, I have to.
Damn,
go
you're
over
drunk.
there.
You're about to throw up. You're like, I'm fucking going
I'm
over
fine. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
So then he's
Watch
with a
this.
girl who wasn't prettier than me. That's what made me so mad. It made me so mad that this bitch was uglier than me. I looked at him and I was like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Did you say that? Please
I
tell me
went
you
up
said
to
that.
him and I was like, hey, how was that funeral? And he was like, oh, I didn't end up making it, blah, 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 blah. I was like, you're just going to come to the thing I invited you with her? So I'm like causing a scene.
Yeah.
So my gay best friend comes over, pulls me away, and I'm like, fuck you. I'm like yelling at this guy, whatever. And then I did the fun thing where I decided I was going to get drunk at him.
Yeah.
Right? Where I was like, well, you'll see.
Yeah.
Watch this. And I'm like doing shots. And he comes over to me and is like trying to whisper to me and like kissing me on the cheek and stuff. And I'm like fucking elbowing
fuck
him and
outta
like
here.
pushing him and like fully causing a scene, to the point where we had to leave that bar. I didn't make it 3 steps outside of that bar before I threw up everywhere. My gay best friend is like, you got to go. Like, we got to get out of here. So this is where it starts to I don't really remember a lot of what happened next. But what I do fully remember after seeing him, and I ripped probably 4 shots in a row. And I don't know how much of it got into my stream before I threw it all up.
Yeah.
But I woke up that night. So this is probably noon. I woke up that night at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, fully clothed, face down on my bed. Something I always did when I was drunk is I would crank the heat in my house. I don't know why. Every time I woke up hungover, it would be 90 degrees in my house, because I'd come home cold or something. My house was on it was so hot. And I woke up. My car was not at my apartment. I had no idea where my car was. I'm like looking around, can't find my phone. My phone is dead. I put my phone on the charger, and I'm sitting in my room, and I'm just having this moment.
Super hungover. Not even. Still drunk. Yeah.
Still drunk at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, whatever it is. And I'm having this moment where I like looked around, and my house was destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, clothes everywhere. My cat's water bowl was moldy. I had no food in her dish. Like, her litter box was overflowing. Like, my just takeout containers, empty beer cans, like warm Miller Lite, like just a total disaster. I go into my kitchen, it's stacked up with moldy fucking pots and pans, and I like looked around, and it's what they call a moment of clarity.
I was just about to say it.
Where you sit and you have that moment of clarity, and you're like, what the fuck have I been doing? Like, how have I been living like this? And I actually started doing coke about 3 weeks before this. So that's like really what also led to it getting so much worse, is that now I'm on 3-4 day benders where I'm out and I'm not even coming home for 4 days at a time. So I'm looking around, and my apartment's a disaster. I have no idea where my car is. I turn my phone on. I have like 40 missed calls. People are trying to find me. I can't figure it out. So then I called my buddy.
Is this the same best friend that you went out with?
No, I called my buddy, and I was like, hey, I need you to come pick me up. Like, I don't know where my car is, and I need to eat food. And I go out, and I'm telling him everything that's happening, and I'm like laughing, and I'm still drunk, and he's looking at me like, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you need to think about what's going on. And so we find my car. It's parked at a bar, and I drive it home.
Classic.
And then in my car, I found I had like a card from a police officer with like a case number written on the back and a ticket. And I was looking at it, I was like, what the fuck is this? And so then I go through my phone and I have like pictures of another person's insurance card and ID and all this shit, pictures of damage to their car. I had apparently gotten in a crash, pulled over. I don't know how I didn't get a DUI.
You exchanged information
In a full-blown blackout
to a cop
who gave me their card and a ticket. And like like following too closely or something.
You are the most attractive person.
I think I'm just
Ohio.
really, really lucky. I'm just very, very lucky. And so, you know, my buddy had talked to me. I had that moment of clarity in my apartment. We went out, and then I'm looking at this shit in my car, and I was like, I could have killed somebody.
Yeah.
I could have killed myself. I don't even remember getting into an accident. Like, and the other cars I've crashed, I always crashed by myself.
Yeah.
I'd hit a tree, or I'd hit a guardrail, or
Who
I'd
put that there?
Right.
Yeah.
It was never. I never ever hurt anybody else, which I know they were in danger. I'm not saying it's any better, but I am saying this is the first time that I was like, holy
It hits you.
shit.
It doesn't hit you till it hits you.
Like,
yeah.
And so I went home that night and I like called everybody back and I'm not dead. I'm home, blah, 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 blah. And then the next day I woke up and I was just having that anxiety where I'm just crying and I'm like, I have a fucking problem. I need to stop. Like everything's the worst. And I remember I was so hungover. The only thing I ever wanted to eat when I was hungover was chicken noodle soup.
Okay.
So I went to Panera. And I was sitting there having chicken noodle soup and I have the shakes and I'm like violently ill and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I don't want to have a drink, but I feel like I need one. So I made this big long post on social media about how I have a drinking problem. I need your guys' help. I need someone to keep me accountable.
Is this on like Facebook, Instagram?
Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook and Instagram. And I was like,
Did you have a
please.
following on Instagram at the time?
Not like I do now.
Okay.
But I was a big enough name in the Cleveland scene that
where you knew, yeah.
I knew that I knew bartenders.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to put it out there. Like, don't fucking serve me.
Yeah.
Like, if you
and
see
a lot of
me-
people in the service industry, just from still working in it now, like if you
know
say
each other.
like, yeah, and if you say like, hey, I need to chill out,
they will straight up be like,
They
get the
are
fuck out of my
very-
bar.
yeah.
And that's what I needed.
Yeah.
So it was very much that. And I put it out there and I got like overwhelming support.
That's
and like
awesome.
a lot of my friends were like, we saw this coming a year ago. You know what I mean? Like, you should have quit.
Where have you been? Yeah.
we all knew. And so like that was March 3rd, 2019. So my last drink was the day before. But March 3rd, 2019 was when I posted all that. I went to my first AA meeting that night. I'm just sobbing and I'm broken and I'm, whatever. So that's like where it all ended.
and that's so now you're
It's all up from there.
Yeah, look at you.
So,
Yeah, May 31st, 2018 for me.
Nice.
But same moment of clarity, which I thought I had before. I went to rehab in 2013.
yeah.
And I remember I thought my moment of clarity was my cousin. I was doing comedy in Oklahoma City with my cousin. And I talk about this in the one-man show, but he had told me, you're embarrassing me on stage, basically. Like, you're getting hammered and running the light, like threatening other comics, like, come up here and take the mic. Like, he was like,
It's actually how I met Mark Norman.
is it really?
I cussed him out.
Did you really?
Him and Chris Allen, his opener. Yeah, that's another story for another day.
But he said, if you can stay sober for 30 days, you're a good comic. So I'll start getting you booked on actual showcases and stuff in Oklahoma. I lived in Florida my whole life. I spent 3 months in Oklahoma because I spent all that money that I told you about, and then I flew to my cousin's house because he wasn't going to charge me rent.
Yeah.
And I thought I had that moment of clarity sitting. It was 28 days, and I was sitting in the back of his apartment in my little room, and I was watching Burn Notice on my iPhone, like just doing shots. And he walked in, and he goes, what happens? And I started sobbing, and I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And on the next day, I was on a plane to rehab, and I was like, that's my moment of clarity.
Yeah.
Before I got my 1 year chip, I started drinking again because I was like, I overreacted. I'm 25. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And then I didn't finally have it until my last drunk. Long story short, it was my 30th birthday. I was like, I can't believe this is what my life. I was pre-law. I was a Division I athlete, and now I'm waiting tables, not doing comedy anymore, like just trying to survive. Like, this is miserable. I don't want to be here anymore. So I drank a handle and a half in 36 hours.
Yeah.
And I remember I came to out of a blackout vomiting, and I looked in the bathroom mirror and I said, you're going to die now, all alone, and that's exactly what you deserve. And I blacked out, and I woke up in the hospital, and they were like, yeah, you should have been dead a few hours ago,
Damn.
actually. And I had a friend in town who was coming to visit. Only reason he found me was because I left my door unlocked because I was just in a drunken stupor.
Yeah.
I never left my door unlocked. He walked in and I was unresponsive on the ground. He rushed me to the hospital. I lived.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. But then I was like, fuck. Like, I got to cut this out, man.
After college, I tried to check myself into rehab, and I didn't have insurance. And they told me no. They were like, you drove yourself here. Your vitals are fine. A bed is going to cost you whatever, $1,000 a night. And to be honest with you, you're not in half as bad of shape as all the people that do need beds. So I took that as, well, the professionals don't think I have a problem. So I don't have a problem. I was like 23 or 24 at that point.
I went to my first AA meeting at 21.
Yeah.
And
I went to one in college.
Yeah. And I was like crying and I was like, I think I party too hard. Like, I need help.
Yeah.
And then I went to I heard some of the other stories and I was like,
I do not have a problem.
I was like, I am such a drama queen.
I'm
like,
killing it.
Chill
Well,
out.
I'm
Like,
doing
get
so
out
well.
of here.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Dude,
for
we
sure.
have to have you back on. We have
It's 1:40. We gotta
have
go.
so many more stories we got to talk
It was a
about.
mess.
Plug everything one more time.
Mary Santora Comedy, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, MarySantora.com for all the upcoming tour dates.
Boom.
Done.
We'll have you back on in the
Sure.
next couple of months,
Yeah, sure.
weeks, whatever.
Let me know.
At Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the one-man show, Ex-Drinking Buddy, a comics look at life, near-death, recovery, and redemption.
Hey.
And we will talk to you all next week. Boom.